Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, Peak Performance Coach Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you, all of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I'm your host, Brian Bosley, and today I want to start off with a heart letter we received just a couple of days ago regarding the episode with Brian Mora, the Ironman Brian Mora, which was aired last week. Real simple heart letter. It just said, this one was solid. They are all solid, but wow. Thank you to our audience member, and thank you to Brian Mora. That was one heck of an opportunity to speak with him for almost, I think, an hour and a half last week. So, all right, well, folks, today you have me alone. I've been getting a lot of requests from the Bamboo Pack to do some more of these monologue podcasts, sprinkle them in here. And kind of what I'm being asked is to maybe deal with some things that are happening in our culture or address some of the things that we're seeing on the news. And it's just that's just not me. Number one, I don't watch the news. I believe those who don't watch the news are uninformed, and those who do watch the news are misinformed. I'd rather be uninformed than misinformed. I find my material as it's necessary. And I don't really talk politics on here or religion. Number one, I'm not an expert in any one of those areas. And I think there are enough talking heads out there dealing with those issues. So what I thought I would talk about was just growth, fear, and kindness. Kind of an odd mixture of things. But I've been doing a lot of coaching recently with clients on the subjects. I've been dealing with a lot of these myself. And, well, let's just start. You know, obviously, one of the things that we look for most from life is growth. And growth might be spiritual, financial, career, health, romance. It can be a multitude of definitions, but just becoming a better version of yourself every day, man. That's the idea. It's the idea of trying to manifest a better version of yourself tomorrow and then the next day, and continue to climb that mountain of life. But it's difficult, man. It's such a pain in the ass because it's not who we are wired to be. Human beings are not really designed to grow. We are designed for homeostasis, man. We are designed to stay in one spot forever. Now, I know that goes contrary to all the things that I talk about and all of my guests, and I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm just saying that's why it's so damn hard. Because our brains do not want to grow. And our brains control so much of us. We've talked about the amygdala many times on this podcast, which is the almond-shaped part of your brain that is really designed. Best way to put it, it's designed to keep us safe. Our brains, and I know this is, I'm probably simplifying for effect here, but I do believe our brains are designed to be lazy and scared. Because if you're lazy and scared all the time, you don't try new things. You don't risk things. You stay in one spot. You keep that comfort zone small your entire life. That might have worked 10,000 years ago, when in fact we had to be always looking out for danger. We had to see anything new and revolutionary as dangerous because there was so much danger back then. We had animals attacking our villages. We had other tribes attacking our villages. We had starvation and droughts and typhoons and all types of these natural disasters that could occur. So we had to always say, keep it low, keep it close. Let's stay where we are. Keep our comfort zone small. Don't go too far. Don't swim too far out into the ocean. But that's not the game we play anymore. The vast majority of us on this planet don't live lives of constant danger. There's not a catastrophe waiting around every corner. We don't have wolf packs, wild bears, other tribes trying to kill us. Well, we know a typhoon, we know a hurricane, we know a blizzard, we know most everything's coming, sometimes days in advance. We are so well protected and sheltered in our society. But you know what? Our amygdala does not know that. That amygdala is still there. It has not evolved out of our species. And it probably won't for millions of years. It wants job security. So it's always telling us anything new, asking that person out on a date, raising your hand in class, making a point in a meeting, getting up on stage. Just about anything. If it's new, it's going to be considered dangerous. And the brain is going to say, no. That's not what we want to do here. You stay right here. You remain quiet. Because mediocrity is one hell of a camouflage. You're an average, mediocre person. You don't try to strive. You don't try to grow. You don't try to change. You don't try to develop. You blend in, man. It is one hell of a camouflage. But man, is it an awful way to go through life. There's a reason why we coined the phrase, most men live lives of quiet desperation, because it's true. We get stuck in a rut. We get stuck in fear. We get stuck in this idea of, I just want to stay exactly who I am. Even if we know the growth and the change is extremely positive for ourselves, our loved ones, our community, our clients, our peers, and the world, potentially. We don't want to grow. Well, we want to, but our brains are saying don't. It's a bear to fight that brain. But it's very, very possible. In fact, it's highly probable. When you understand exactly what causes us to avoid growth and change and personal and professional development. It's fear, man. It's fear. You know, when you're born with two primal fears. The fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. And that's why so often if you have a baby and there's a loud noise, the baby will jump. Or if you're ever holding a baby and you kind of stumble a little bit, the baby will tense up. Just about every other fear you have was culturalized and socialized into you. Your parents, your friends, your family, the media, teachers, or experiences you had will cause you to fear something. And the vast majority of those fears are completely irrational. When I was about 10 years old, there was a bat in my mom's house. And we knew it was there because the night before, a friend of the family hit it with a tennis racket and it flew. We don't know where it went. So I told my mom, my friend Mike was staying over. We were having a sleepover. And I said, Mom, we'll get that bat. Well, the bat did awaken later on that night, and I had my pajamas on, and I kind of panicked a little bit. I didn't really do much. And I was walking through the kitchen. The bat happened to be on the kitchen floor. I had no idea. No idea. And my mom and my sister were kind of yelling. They were kind of panicking because they were pointing. And I'm like, I don't know. I stepped on the bat anyway, but I stepped on it with the arch of my foot, so it didn't smush the bat. I didn't even feel it. And it crawled up my foot and onto my pajamas. And then when I finally realized what my mom and sister were yelling at, I looked down and this bat was clung to my leg on my pajamas. So I kicked it and it flew off and landed on the wall. And I remember sitting down in the chair just shaking. 10 years old. It wasn't until last summer that I overcame my fear of bats. And I had to expose myself to bats to do so. So for 45 years, I had this stupid, irrational fear of bats. Now, come on. How many people do we know who've been bitten by a bat? I know one. And if you are bitten by a bat, what are the chances it has rabies? Very, very small. And if it does have rabies, you get rabies shots. What are the chances you're going to die? Almost infinitesimal, whatever the word is. Highly, highly unlikely. We have these fears, man, that control us on a consistent basis. I had a fear of public speaking. which is really strange for me. I remember when I first became a public speaker and doing a lot of traveling and doing a lot of speaking on stages, it could be in front of, I think my smallest crowd was probably 4 people. My largest crowd was 4,000. And somewhere between that small crowd of 4, that crowd of 4,000, I overcame my fear. It was so bad at one point, I would sweat so profusely when I got on stage or even just walking around a conference room talking to a few people that I would buy, I think they're called maxi pads. I don't know. But you know what I'm talking about. The things that have the little wings and the stickers. And I would put them underneath the inside of my t-shirt to collect my sweat. I would just pour sweat. But then I realized after using, I couldn't do it because when you're moving your arms, they make a weird noise. It was almost like I had paper mache under my armpits. And what is wrong? What's the reason we fear public speaking? It's the number one fear in the world. We don't want to get on stage and do karaoke or do comedy or do a speech or even a toast at a wedding. We're deathly afraid of it. Completely irrational. But it is because when you break down fear, there are 2 types of fear, really. There's fear of failure and fear of success. And I tell my clients on a consistent basis, and we talked about these things back on, I think, episodes 6, 7, and 8 back in February of 2022. I think I did a 3-episode series on fears. I think it's called Monkey Trap. So if you want to go back and listen to those, they're probably a little raw. It was the beginning stages of my podcasting, but they will cover this in much more detail and depth. But we all have fear of failure because fear of failure is really just a combination of 3 other fears. Fear of rejection, fear of being embarrassed, and fear of losing something that you have. Now, my assumption is every one of you out there, you don't want to be rejected, you don't want to be embarrassed, and you don't want to lose something that you have. So if you have one of those fears, you have fear of failure. But a lot of times fear of failure isn't always debilitating because it can be. It can keep us in that level we talked about earlier where the brain says, stay where you are, keep that comfort zone small. We don't want to grow. We don't want to change. We don't want to develop. We don't want to transform. So we'll stay there because we don't want to be rejected. I don't want to ask that person out. I don't want to sing a song at my wedding. I don't want to get up on stage. I don't want to raise my hand in class or make a point in a meeting because I might be rejected. I might be embarrassed. Maybe I could even lose what I have. So we'll stay quiet. We'll stay camouflaged. We'll stay mediocre. It's a very slippery slope, an incredibly slippery slope. I was listening to a podcast recently where the guest on there was a lady who is committed to doing 100 days overcoming 100 fears or doing 100 things she's afraid of in 100 days. So far she's done things like, skydived. She did stand-up comedy. Never did it before, but she got up and did a skit. She actually posed naked and nude for an art class. Tell me the resilience you would build if you did something that extreme. That woman will come out of these 100 days a completely transformed human being. She has said screw you to her amygdala, and her comfort zone will be astronomically bigger when she's done. And I'm sure every day it's growing more and more and more. But fear of failure, it's very challenging to overcome. But so you can either stay in their comfort zone, do very little, anything different, go to work, get up in the morning, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, get up in the morning, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed. You can repeat that. You'll live your 80 years on this planet, but you really won't. You'll live 3 or 4 years and you'll just repeat those 20 or 30 times. That's not living. That's existing. And it all comes down to the inability for us to overcome or the lack of desire or maybe not even that. Maybe it's more the lack of knowledge that why we do that. The world needs us to perform at our highest level. The world needs us to change and grow, develop, and transform. Because when we do that, we not only give to the world our best talents and skill sets, we inspire others to do that. And they go on and change the world. It's incredibly important for us to understand this point, because I know for a fact there have been many times in my life where I have stayed put. I have sat back, not challenged myself, not done that extra thing, maybe not asked that love of my life out on a date, and missed an opportunity that could have changed my world. Maybe it's not asking a question in a meeting. Maybe it's not pursuing a client when they say, or a prospect when they say no the first time. Something that could have completely revolutionized my life and many other people's lives. We all do this. I'm no expert at overcoming this. I just know the semantics of the tools behind it. I still fall prey to it. But the beauty of it, when you know the semantics, you know the tools, and you know why you're afraid to change and grow and transform, there's a greater likelihood that you'll be able to overcome that and become the person you are meant to become. So there's fear of failure, which is rejection, embarrassment, losing what you have. But then you have this entirely new thing, or a separate part of fear, different type of fear, which is fear of success. Ooh, that one is not easy, nor is it simple. It's complex, man. It's ingrained in our culture. This idea of cancel culture we have now, this very debilitating process of people just trying to shut people down because 15 years ago they made a comment they didn't agree with. They don't go after mediocre people who say things like that. They go after the people who are successful, whether it's financial, political, spiritually healthy, whatever. They go after those people. That scares people, man. But also so much of our fear of success is internal. We don't feel we deserve success. We feel like we'll be an imposter if we're successful. We feel, just this innate discomfort with success. And when I say success, man, it's not just money. It's not just career. It's success with your family, your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your happiness level. That all encompasses success. I would recommend going back to listen to episodes 6, 7, and 8, because in those episodes, I talk in much more detail about fear of success. I go through the components of fear of success, and I help you dissect which one of those components is the probable reason why you fear success. I can honestly tell you, if I was a betting man, I would say 80% of the people listening right now fear success, if not more. In 26 and a half years of coaching professionals, that's about the number I've seen. And in fact, the more successful clients that I've, and I'm talking in this case, most professionally successful clients that I've coached, all of them that I can remember have had fear of success. And it's odd because when you tell them they have it, before you give them the data, you share with them the probable causes, the reasons, and you share with them the material. They're like, what do you mean? Am I afraid of success? Look at what I have. Look at my home. Look at my company. Look at my money. Look at my car. Look at all this stuff. And I say, yeah, great. You got successful because you have a lot of talent. You relied on other talents. But the entire time you were driving towards success, you had your emergency brake on. And had you released that brake and realized 20 or 30 years ago that you had fear of success, you would have become a great deal more successful, and you would have become successful a lot sooner. It's like trying to run with a 50-pound dumbbell tied and tethered to your leg, and you don't even know it's there. So if you think you might have fear of success, go back and listen to those previous episodes. And if you're damn sure you don't have fear of success, go back and listen to those February 22 episodes, and maybe listen to them twice even. Because the thing is when we're trying to change and grow, it's so challenging because we can change through one of three methods. And in fact, we all use all three of these methods. But on the jugular more important things in life, that's where I'm really concerned with is which method do you primarily use? So you can change, number one, by shock. You have a heart attack, you almost die. Now you start changing your diet and your exercise program. That's changing by shock. It's highly effective. It really is, man. When your husband tells you they're going to leave you, but you make changes. If your boss says one more chance, you got fired, or you have a heart attack, and make some changes, it works. It's just highly inefficient because by the time you get to that point, you probably have a lot of damage to overcome. You got to fix a lot of back problems and make a lot of very difficult choices. And as we talked about, making those choices and changes is not easy. So shock is a method of change that we use. Another method is called evolutionary change. It's another method we can use. And evolutionary is going back to the heart attack example. It's the 57-year-old man who starts to, he's overweight, doesn't exercise, doesn't eat right, smokes heavily, drinks heavily, always really profusely sweating whenever they try to walk, no energy, and they start to feel pressure in their chest. They start to feel numbness in their arms, and just a little bit here and there. And so they start changing their entire workout routine. They start working out, eating, cutting down alcohol, stopping drinking or cigarettes. They start just really taking care of their health. Now, they didn't wait for the heart attack to happen, so they changed by evolution, not by shock. But the point is, there was probably a little bit of damage done. You wait. Evolutionary change is kind of the procrastinator's version of change. You wait to see how other people change. You wait to see when they change. You wait to see till you're almost to the point where if you don't change, you're going to have a big problem. But you change proactively. It's more efficient than changing by shock because there's not as much damage done. But still, it's not the most effective and efficient way to change. The most effective and efficient way to change is through method number 3, which is anticipatory change. Changing by anticipation. That's the 25-year-old person who realizes that, you know what? I'm going to start taking care of my body right now. I'm going to exercise, eat right, going to drink very little. I'm not going to pick up cigarettes. I'm going to work on my stress level, meditate, yoga, whatever I need to do so that my body will never get to a point where I have to change by evolution or shock. It's extremely proactive. And I'm not saying if you're 55 years old and out of shape right now that you shouldn't exercise. Yeah, you should. You should get on the track. Make evolutionary change is better than nothing. But in every time we change, in everything, and we're changing every day. When you look at the next thing the thing that you're trying to change and grow in most in this world, in this life, something at work or home, or maybe it's your health or your spiritual journey, ask yourself, right now, in the big things in life, what mode of change do I use mostly? Is it shock? Am I forced to change? Do I do it on my own, but I do it quite late in the game? Or I do it before the change even needs to happen? Do I lead and spearhead the change in my life? Do I lean into it? Do I take responsibility and accountability for it? See, you get to choose the method you use to change. That's up to you. It's completely up to you. But regardless of the method that you use, you're going to go through 3 stages of change. Unless you quit the process of change and growth. So you're trying to grow something. Let's keep it with the exercise. You want to lose 30 pounds this year. You want to chisel some muscle in your body. You want to get more energy. You want to be more attractive. You want the clothes to fit. You want to buy new clothes that'll actually fit your new frame. When you make that decision to change, or even if somebody else puts a decision on you, forces you to change, the first thing your brain does is it goes through the stage 1, which I call the RAID stage. And that's where it's RAID. And in that stage, first stage of change, you either ridicule the change, you get a little angry at the change, you ignore the change, or you deny the need to change. See, a lot of times we knew long in advance, the person who decides to start exercising and eating right, they knew a long time ago they needed to, and they've been wanting to. But they were in that RAID stage so long. They were ridiculing it maybe, or maybe get a little angry because people are telling them they need to change, or maybe they're just ignoring that. I don't really need to change. I'm okay. Or denying the need to change, putting their head in the sand. A lot of people stay there. A lot of people stay right there, and they never grow. Those are the people that I talked about who live in that comfort zone, camouflage. Mediocrity. They're there. No, they really don't stand out. Great people. They're good people. But they're what I would call an apologist. They're apologizing for taking space on the earth. And everybody You deserve better than that. We all deserve better than that. We all need you at your peak of happiness, health, love, career, finance, professional, whatever. We need you at the peak of your level. We have so many issues today with mental health. We talk about mental health. We've had so many conversations, especially since the forced quarantines of 2 years ago. Mental health went dramatically down in our societies across the world. Teen suicide has been up. I mean, anxiety, depression, it's astronomical. These are some small ways we can help get back on track. So 3 stages, and that's that first stage of any change process or growth process is RAID: ridicule, anger, ignoring, or denying. But if you can get past that stage, okay, then you start going to the gym, let's say, and you actually start going to the gym, and you start going through the change process, and you start actually seeing some of the benefits of change. We've all done this. You finally get past that first stage, and you start working out and exercising, eating right. You feel good. You have a new mission, man. You got a meaningful mission in your life. I want to do this. So the first few weeks are not too difficult. And maybe the first few days are hard, getting up early and going to the gym, but then you get into a groove and you really feel empowered, more energy. You just feel good about yourself. You go to work that day, if you work out in the morning, feeling so much better. You go to bed at night feeling better. But then you hit that second stage of change. And this one is a bear to overcome. It's the resistance stage. And here's a weird thing. It's even when you're seeing the benefit of the growth and the benefit of the change, even if you see the benefit, you look in the mirror, you look better, you've lost a lot of weight, you can see some muscle forming. I mean, your complexion is better. People are giving you compliments. Your clothes fit amazingly well. You have this energy and this vitality. All of a sudden, you hit resistance. And that's that little amygdala, that comfort zone is saying, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not really you in the mirror. You're this overweight, sweaty, unenergetic, low confident individual that we've always known you to be. You come back to here to me and you get back in your comfort zone. And because we see that as a sign that, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I'm maybe a little edgy, a little angry, I don't feel right in my new skin, that you automatically think that we have to go back to the comfort. It's a sign that I'm doing something wrong. Look at it when you exercise with resistance bands. When you pull them out, 18 inches, you don't feel a lot, but when you pull those things out at arm's length, your arms start to shake. They shake and they shake and they shake. That resistance band is your comfort zone. And it's desperately trying to get you back to its original form and size. And when you feel that resistance, your muscles want to retract back to small, they want to come back together and release that band. Well, in reality, when you're feeling that resistance, that's a sign that you're almost to the next level, that you're making progress, that you're almost around that next corner. But our brains say, oh, no, because you feel uncomfortable, you got to come back. You got to come back to who you were. That's just because your brain is lazy and scared. That's your amygdala sensing danger. And in reality, we have to continue pulling that rubber band, that resistance band, because eventually when you do that, your comfort zone, it snaps and becomes a much larger comfort zone. I had an experience last week. I was traveling and I got up early one morning and I was writing in my journal. And I don't have my journal right in front of me right now, but I've read this enough this week. This was on Tuesday, April 18th. And I wrote quite a bit in my journal, and I said, lately I have felt like a loser. I have felt scared and insecure. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here because I know what it said, but I don't know word for word. I have felt very uncomfortable in my own skin. I feel like I've lost myself, my purpose, my true peak identity, and I don't really know why. And I put why right now, ? And then I put ... And as soon as I asked myself that question on paper, I said, now I just realized why I was writing the question. It's because I am in stage 2 of resistance. with the podcast, with my practice, with my book, which is coming along slower than I'd hoped, but still coming along, I'm a little unaccustomed to what's been happening. And so I have felt very, I realized when I kept writing that all this is my comfort zone, trying to get me to go back to who I was before. Go back to the comfort you felt before. Go back to a year and a half ago. And that resistance I have felt, that anger, that insecurity, that kind of confusion even, and I've been feeling it for like a month now. And all that kind of even anxiety a little bit, like just kind of out of my, I felt edge, like I was not even in my own skin. That wasn't a sign that I should go back. It was a sign that, Brian, you're ready to break through to the next threshold. Keep going. So that resistance that we face is a sign, but you have to recognize your resistance. When you feel it, stop and say, okay, where am I at? I'm in resistance. I feel uncomfortable. And maybe ask yourself, why? What am I growing in right? There's something in my life I'm growing in. I'm doing something better than I was yesterday or that I was a year ago. I've lost more weight, or I'm healthier. I'm in a better relationship. I'm making more money. I'm getting more notice at work, or whatever it might be. When you feel resistance, it's a sign that something in your life is growing and going well. So you have to decide what that is, because otherwise your natural reaction will be to kind of go backward on all these things, to go back to your comfort zone. You have to identify why you feel the resistance and say, okay, that's why. That's a sign in that area. I need to keep pushing forward. Then when you do that, which is it takes a lot, trust me, but I know you can do it. I know you can get past resistance. It is the most difficult of the 3 stages. And when you get past that resistance, you get into the 3rd stage of change and growth, which is acceptance. You accept the new you as reality. You look in the mirror and you see that chiseled body in this case, or the lost weight, or you see the higher pay, bigger paychecks. You feel the more love for your loved one. You feel different. You look different. You act different. And you accept that as, yeah, that's me. That's beautiful. That is me. But the catch is, then you got to start all over again, unless you want to stay at that level. But if you want to keep stretching your comfort zone, you got to keep growing, which is going to put you right back to rage stage. You're going to go through resistance again, then acceptance. And you're going to keep doing that all of your life. And so much of your life will be spent in resistance. But once you recognize it for what it is, resistance is not a bad place to be, because you know it's a reward. You know the finish line to the next level, to acceptance, is right around the corner. And it becomes more habitual, more habit. You just say, oh, I'm in resistance right now. I'm feeling edgy. I don't feel very comfortable. I'm making more money. I'm more in love. I feel healthier, whatever it might be. And you go, but I'll get used to it, and I'll break through, and my comfort zone will stretch even more. I mean, your goal in life, really, if we really had to dissect it down to the basic level, it's to grow your comfort zone. Because when your comfort zone is small, there's very little you can or will do. When it's large, there's nothing you can or can't do, or won't do, I should say. Nothing you can't accomplish. You know, I talked before about a character back in the 1870s. I think it was Nevada, parts of Arizona and California. They named him Black Bart. He wore a black hood. And this guy was terrifying, man. He was robbing people, stagecoaches, consistently highly effective, highly efficient stagecoach robber. Towns were kind of afraid to travel. People were afraid to travel because he was so effective and efficient. And they had this picture of this 6'5" Scarface whiskey drinking killer, rode up on a black horse and brandishing his guns. Well, one of his big victims was Wells Fargo. He was robbing their stagecoaches left and right. So they finally said, hey, man, we can't do this. We need to get this guy. So they hired a team of mercenaries, and they tracked him down. And those guys were afraid. They didn't know what they were going to run into. This guy had a mythical legend. They did catch him. They pulled the mask off of Black Bart. What they found is it wasn't 6'5" Scarface whiskey drinking killer. He was about 5'8", 5'7", pretty skinny. He was an ex-pharmacist, and he was a poet. Now, in all these raids that he did in the West, he never once killed anybody, because a lot of times he didn't load his guns because he was deathly afraid of guns. And even though he rode up on a horse, he was deathly afraid of horses. They got him. I don't know what they did with him. They probably hung him, I would imagine, back in the day. It was probably status quo that back then. But think about that. Black Bart, hooded bandit, 6'5", whiskey drinking, Scarface, gun shooting killer. Was the legend. That's what people feared. Pulled the mask off him. He's like 5'7", skinny, real timid, ex-pharmacist poet who was afraid of guns and horses. So you think about that in relation to your fears. Your fears, or most of them are Black Bart fears. They're bogus. And when you go to a scary movie, if I were to come down and visit you today and we were going to go to the scariest movie out in the cinemas today, the monster is not scary when it's on the screen. Very seldom. Sometimes they're a little silly. It's when you don't know when it's going to pop out, when it's behind the corner, it's behind the curtains. That's when it's scary. And if the monster came on the screen and you jumped and you looked at it, and all of a sudden the lights in the theater came on, you looked around and you're with your family and your friends, and you're eating popcorn and Junior Mints and drinking a Gatorade, you look around and go, oh my gosh, this is so funny. I was so afraid a minute ago. Now I realize I'm with all my friends and family enjoying this entertainment. The monster is really not that scary anymore. That's what we have to do with our fears. We have to pull them out, expose them, rip the mask off of them, turn the light on them and say, wait a minute, are you real? And one of the ways you can do that, and this is a recommendation I've given to my clients the last 2 weeks, is to list out your 3 biggest fears. And then extract the one that you want to work on today. Pull it aside, write it down. Let's say fear of bats would be mine a year ago. Then put down, why do you think you have this fear? Well, I would say because my mom was deathly afraid of bats as a kid, and she would go she'd get very panicky when a bat would come along, to say the least. And then I stepped on one at age 10. That's my reason. Once you do that, then now become the antagonist to the fear. I want you then at that point to assume that someone you love sat down with you and they told you that the fear you just wrote down is their fear, and they have the same reasons for it. And you have to convince that person that their fear is fake. Convince them that their fear is a Black Bart bogus fear. Like for me, I would say to somebody who said I'm afraid of bats and I can't function, I literally lived in a building in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I lived in 2 different spaces in the building. I lived in one on the top floor, and I slept in one on the 3rd floor because I loved the big space on the top floor, but it had bats in it, and I couldn't get rid of them. So I would go downstairs at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, sleep on an army cot on the 3rd or 4th floor space. I don't know which floor it was, 3rd or 4th, because it didn't have bats. And I did that for a while till I realized I can't afford this anymore. That's how bad my bat fear was. So I would say to somebody who said they have a fear of bats, well, I would say, yeah, well, what are they? How many people do you know have been bitten by bats? None. Okay. Do you know anybody who's gotten rabies from bats? No. Do you know if you ever got rabies, if it was, would you survive? Yeah, I'd get a shot. Okay. Are bats known to be terrifying? Do they kill a lot of people? No. Okay. I would go down and make their fear so ridiculous by turning the light on it and pulling the mask off of it that you sit back and go, wow, this is pretty crazy. So I want you to do that. If you want to do this, overcome one fear, or at least put a big dent in it, write it out, tell yourself why, and be the antagonist and expose the light to the fear. Talk about the probabilities of it. Talk about worst case scenario. Could you survive worst case scenario? Talk about what you could do to overcome that fear. Convince yourself how ridiculous the fear is. Because I'll guarantee the vast majority of the fears you write down are bogus. They're Black Bart, but they're controlling us. They are. Talk a little bit about kindness. Now, you probably wonder, well, how does growth, fear, and kindness match? Well, because our ultimate challenge in life is to grow, to stretch that comfort zone. But we don't do so because we have these innate fears inside. And the thing that we're missing out on if we don't grow is the ability to show kindness to the world. You know, we had Dr. Fred Luskin on here a few weeks ago, and he's the author of the best-selling book, Forgive for Good. I mean, this book is revolutionary. And he talked about forgiveness being a combination somewhat. I don't want to paraphrase. I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to. His books, and you can get online and go to YouTube. I mean, he's everywhere on YouTube. He's got some amazing content. I mean, just amazing. Talks about humility and gratitude. And I do believe in order for us to grow and overcome our fears, we also have not just to forgive people, do we have to have humility and gratitude, but to really to overcome our fears and to grow, we have to have humility and gratitude. Because if we don't admit that if we don't have humility and we think we're much, much better than we are, why would we grow? I mean, why? I mean, the one thing I've had to realize over the past probably 5 to 8 years of my life is how truly dysfunctional I am. You know, I have to be okay reading the things like I wrote in my journal to the audience, talking about how I thought of myself last Tuesday morning on the 18th of April as a loser. I have to be able to admit that I had to put maxi pads in my armpits to control sweat from profuse sweating when I was speaking in public years ago. I've really realized over the past few years, and probably even more so over the last 9 months, man, I got a lot of stuff in my head. I got a lot of stuff in my closet that I got to keep filing out and working on and throw away some, develop some. You know, it's just so much going on. And that's just practicing humility. Because I think for so many years, maybe the first 10 years of my coaching, maybe even longer, I thought I was so much better than I was. And it stunted my growth. What it really stunted was my ability to serve and become better at my craft and become a better communicator, speaker, a better means of inspiration for others because I hid my demons. I didn't show vulnerability. I was so afraid, so insecure, so lost in my own need to prove myself that it stunted my growth. I stayed in stages 1 and 2. And when I changed, a lot of times it was by shock. So humility is incredibly important in gratitude. You know, the University of California, Berkeley did a study a few years ago, I don't know how exact date, that showed for every one positive thing you notice in your life and in the world each day, you notice 9 negative things. You can thank your amygdala for that. It's looking for negative things. Now, it doesn't see typhoons and dire wolves and other tribes trying to take over your village to kill and pillage. What it sees is somebody cutting off in traffic. It sees the bad news because we all know what the media, if it bleeds, it leads. You know, that's why you don't see anything good on the media. They're not telling you the facts or the truth. They're just telling you just the negative things. Because you won't tune into the positive things because your amygdala wants negative. It wants job security, so it notices the negative things. That's just the way we're wired. So we have to actually force our brains to see the good things in this life. Because for every one negative, bad thing, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of positive things going on. We just don't see them. You know, so I really believe in the idea of having a gratitude journal. I know it's become a little cliche lately, but I can tell you that now that I've been doing mine for, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe not quite, I don't know. It has made an incredible difference in my life. So when I get up in the morning after I do my little routine, I have about a 2.5 hour routine every morning. And somewhere in the beginning of that routine, somewhere near the beginning of it, I journal. And then I every day write 5 things for which I'm grateful for at that moment. And it can be anything. You know, today one was I could hear birds chirping. Now I have a bird app that I listen to because listening to birds chirp for 1 second every day in the morning. This is a study. Just for 1 second can help to improve your happiness up to 6 hours during that day. So I have an app that has birds chirping. I listen to it for about 3 seconds every morning. Today I listened to they were outside. It's getting warmer up here where I live, so they're coming out, I guess, a little more. The furnace isn't kicking on as much, so I don't have as much background noise. And I heard him. So that was one of my things. Sometimes it's the cup of coffee. Sometimes it's because of some amazing person I just met recently. Or maybe it's because of, I got to Jack said grandpa. My grandson said grandpa in his own way of saying grandpa a couple of weeks ago. It's whatever at that moment I feel grateful for. And I am incredibly grateful for, and I just put 5 things. So what you do that, you're training your brain to look for the good things in life. Now, do I still see the bad, and will you still? Oh, yeah. But you'll start seeing a lot more good than you will see bad. So I think for us to be kind, we do need to have to practice humility. And Dr. Luskin said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase, humility is realizing that there are hundreds and thousands of great things going on in the world right now that I had nothing to do with. I just think that's a really cool way to put it, man. Like there's so many great things that I had no influence on. And so we tend to, even though we kind of live this life of a low sense of self-worth, we do seem to think that we are the center of the universe at the same time. And humility is just like, no. Whatever problem you have, whatever problem I have, other people have gone through it, and other people will go through it. That's humility, and being in gratitude for the simple act of being alive. Your family, your health, your love, your career, your brain, your heat, your cold water, your food, your transportation, warm cup of coffee, a dog on your lap. When you do that, you start noticing the better things that are happening around you. Art DeLorenzo in a previous episode, something to the effect of acts of kindness are the greatest sleeping pills. I think that's so powerful. And he made a statement that he said, when you do something good for a person and you look at them in the eye when you do it, when you go to bed that night, your brain will remember that face. It'll help you relax. It'll help you to be more calm. So I'm going to recommend a challenge, and this was the actual intent of this podcast. I was going to call it the Rack 50 Challenge, and I still might. And this is something I posed to myself this year, but at the beginning of the year, I made mine 150. And a rack is random act of kindness. So on January 1st of this year, when I put my 12 wins together for the 12 months, one of them was to commit 150 random acts of kindness. Mostly to strangers, but sometimes to someone I love or someone I know. And those, it can be anything. It can be letting a person in traffic. It can be holding a door for someone. It can be paying a toll for somebody on a bridge for the car behind you. It can be, commenting on someone's nails or hair. And that's something that Mel Robbins in her podcast says that's one of the things that she focuses on. If she sees somebody with really nice hair or nice nails, she comments on it because she said that's one of the greatest feelings a person can feel. Just checking on a person. How are you doing? Cards, notes, texts. Tipping well at the restaurant. Calling somebody by their name when you're checking out at a restaurant or ordering food. You don't just say, thank you, have a good day. Say, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Roger. But look at their name tag. Most every retail person or service provider wears a name tag. Here's one that one of my amazing friends, former guest on the podcast, Gino, does. Is at Christmas, they buy wrapping paper. And they leave it at people's doors because they know wrapping paper can be rather expensive. So they go to a location where people may not have a ton of money and they buy a bunch of wrapping paper and they leave it at their door. What a unique thing. Completely anonymous. I shared this experience, and I've had this happen twice, but I'll actually share one of them. And it's not, and I'm not doing this because I'm not saying this because I think I'm this amazing person. No, it takes intent for me to do this. I don't naturally think of doing this. And that's the thing with a random act of kindness. It has to be intentional. It can't be you did something and you come home and go, oh, I did that today. No, it's got to be intentional because when you make it intentional, when you do it on purpose, then your brain starts to formulate a habit around that because you're doing it on purpose. And you're noticing the benefit that not only did you give to that person and see their reaction sometimes, but you're noticing the benefit that it gives to you. And we had I was in Hastings, Michigan, with my friends Becky and Jordan, maybe 2 months ago. And we had breakfast, the three of us did. And I was going to pay. I said, well, I'll go check out and pay. And they were, getting ready to clear the table and go out to the car. And ahead of me were two ladies, I would say, in their late 70s. And they were paying separately. And I was standing behind there. And when they put their checks up on the counter, I said to the person behind the counter, I said, sir, hey, I want to pay for these two young ladies' breakfast or whatever. And they turned around and I said, huh? What? I said, I'd like to pay for your breakfast. Really? And they were stunned. And I said, yeah. And they're like, wow, thank you. I said, you're very welcome. And one of the ladies said, I have never had anybody do that my entire life. And it really came to their things together were $12. I don't even know what they had, a cup of coffee and a toast maybe. I don't know what you get for $6 a piece. And they were looking at me going out saying, thank you again. I'm like, you're welcome. And we got outside. I was going to find Becky and Jordan as they were walking toward the car. And these ladies were getting a little transit bus. A little bus maybe going back to a hotel or home or something. And they're waving at me across the parking lot, thanking me again. Small act of kindness like that. It made my day to the point where 2.5 months ago, later, I'm still thinking about it. So I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Because this will take growth. It will take you to overcome your fears. And it will be an incredible way to practice kindness. Sit down and say for the next 12 months, I'm going to practice 50 random acts of kindness. 50 things I'm going to do that are intentional at the moment that will be designed to make one person feel better about themselves. Him or herself. One thing. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be monetary. It can just be as simple as eye contact and calling somebody by their name, holding a door, saying hello, sir, hello, ma'am, complimenting them for something, just even talking to somebody in line. You see somebody sitting at a restaurant or at a coffee shop that seems alone. Just go over and say, how are you doing? Can I sit here? Or just letting somebody know you care about them, that you're here for them. Doesn't have to be a stranger. It can be anybody. 50 intentional random acts of kindness. We'll call it the 50 Rack Challenge. There are a lot of things going on in our world right now. And I think the media definitely fear-mongers. It definitely knows how to stimulate our amygdala. It knows that what bleeds leads in the headlines. I don't think it's nearly as bad as what people think it is. But that could just be the eternal optimist in me. I don't know. I just know we've been bamboozled by the media to think everything is so bad and we are so divisive and there is so many polar opposites. And there's a lot of truth to it. There is. But it's not as bad as we think. But it still needs to be fixed. And we're not going to fix it with politicians. The media sure the hell isn't going to fix it. Celebrities don't do a damn thing for it. It's me and it's you. We're the people who are going to fix it. If you want to have a really, really incredible good read on the subject, I would recommend the book Don't Wait for Someone Else to Fix It by Doug Linnick and Chuck Wackendorfer. Don't Wait for Someone Else to Fix It. Doug Linnick and Chuck Wackendorfer. Two amazing men have both been on the podcast, just wrote a book that I think is going to change the world. It was released just last month, I believe, or just recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago. But the only way we can do this is we have to fix ourselves. We have to commit to growing as individuals, to understanding that this comfort zone of ours doesn't want us to grow. We have to fight through that. And we're going to have a difficulty with that because we have fears. We have fear of failure, fear of success. We have to go through, decide on what method of change we're going to use to overcome our fears and grow. We're going to have to get through the 3 stages of change and growth. We're going to have to recognize what fears we have that are bogus fears. And then from there, we along with that, we have to practice random acts of kindness. We have to practice humility to realize I don't really know any more than you. I sure in the hell any better than you as a person. We all have to think that way. A lot of great things happen in this world that we have no influence over. And we have to practice gratitude because the world is a pretty damn good place. And as tough as life is, it beats the alternative. And the way we put this in the field is we practice 50 random acts of kindness over the next 52 weeks. I'm going to say something. You're going to change lives by doing this. You're going to change lives. Out of that 50, you might make an impact on a big impact on 3 people. A big impact. But you'll make an impact on every one of the 50. But you're going to make a huge impact on 3 or 4, maybe 5, maybe 10. I don't know. But the person most impacted is you. Is you. Because when you start giving away kindness, you start feeling kinder. You start recognizing more kindness around you. And when you do that, your comfort zone continues to grow and stretch and stretch and strengthen and strengthen. And that, quite frankly, is all I really want for you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week. It felt weird behind here without a guest on. A little awkward for me. I don't know. It's been a few months, I think, since I've done a monologue. I've got a few more written that we'll scatter in there. I appreciate you. I really do. I hope you all know that this podcast started as a hobby and has turned into something much greater, and it has grown to mean so much to me. And it's because of you. I think about the letters we get and the comments we receive and the people who ask questions about, guests and the guests that we bring on. I've gotten to become friends with so many of them. It's all because of you guys. You guys make it, man. You guys do it. You guys make it happen. I appreciate that very much. So I will talk to you in a week. In the meantime, man, get out there and strive to give and be your best. Show love and respect to others and to yourself. And live intentionally, man. Enjoy the moments of life. Until next time.